from the officer's point of view, it was precisely this abbey and its presumed use as a lookout point for German artillery that posed the main obstacle to breaking through the Gustav Line. The British press and journalist S. L. Sulzberger of the New York Times often, convincingly, and in detail, often fabricated, wrote about the German observation posts and artillery positions within the abbey. Lieutenant General Ira Eaker, the commander of the Allied air forces in the Mediterranean, accompanied by Lieutenant General Jacob L. Devers, representative of General Sir Henry Maitland Wilson, the commander of the Allied forces in the region, conducted a reconnaissance flight over the territory of the abbey aboard an aircraft. He noted a radio mast, German uniforms hanging on clotheslines in the middle of the monastery courtyard, and machine gun positions 50 yards, 46 meters, from the walls of the abbey. Major General Jeffrey Keyes also flew over the area several times, but he reported to the 5th Army headquarters that he saw no signs of German presence inside the monastery. When he was informed that others had spotted Germans in the abbey, he replied, "They watched for so long that in the end they began to see what they wanted." At the headquarters of the New Zealand troops, as far as can be judged from the memoirs of Major General Howard Kippenberger, there was an opinion that the monastery might be used by the Germans as a main point for artillery observation, since with such a favorable location, no side would refrain from using it as a lookout post. There is no concrete evidence supporting this assumption. However, Kippenberger wrote that from a military point of view, the current situation with the occupation of the monastery was insignificant. Major General Francis Tucker, whose 4th Indian Division was to capture the height on which the monastery stood, made his own assessment of the situation. Due to the lack of detailed information at the 5th Army headquarters, he had to rely on a book from 1879 found in a Neapolitan bookstore, which described the layout of the abbey. In his address to Freiburg, Tucker concluded that regardless of whether the abbey was currently occupied by the Germans or not, it had to be destroyed to eliminate the possibility of it being used by the enemy as a stronghold. He also pointed out that with the monastery's stone walls rising to 46 meters and at least 3 meters thick, it is useless to order military engineers to breach the territory of the monastery, and that only bombing the abbey with so-called bunker buster bombs could solve the task, as bombing with 1,000-pound bombs would be, according to Tucker, almost useless. On February 11, 1944, the acting commander of the 4th Indian Division, Brigadier Harry Dymoline, requested permission to bomb Monte Cassino. Tucker again clarified his point of view, this time lying in a hospital bed in the hospital of Caserta, where he was being treated for a severe attack of tropical fever. Freiburg submitted his request on February 12. Freiburg's request for an air attack was significantly expanded by a group of planners from the Air Force and was possibly supported by Ira Eaker and Jacob Devers. They wanted to take the opportunity to demonstrate the capabilities of the U.S. Air Force related to supporting ground operations. Commander of the 5th Army, Lieutenant General Mark Wayne Clark, and Chief of Staff Major General Alfred Grunther remained uncertain about the military necessity for carrying out an air raid. During the handover of positions from the 2nd Corps of the U.S. Army to the New Zealand Corps, Brigadier Butler, a representative of the 34th American Division, said, "I don't know, I don't believe the enemy is in the monastery. All the fire is coming from the slopes of the hill beneath the monastery walls." Clark told the Supreme Commander of Allied forces in Italy, General Sir Harold Alexander, "Give me a direct order and we will do it." Such an order was given by Alexander. The bombing began on the morning of February 15, involving 142 B-17 Flying Fortress planes, 47 B-25 Mitchell aircraft, and 40 B-26 Marauder planes. A total of 1,150 tons of bombs were dropped on the abbey that day, turning the entire summit of Mount Cassino into a smoking heap of rubble. In the intervals between the bomber attacks, Allied artillery was active. Many Allied soldiers and correspondents observed what was happening and were pleased. Eaker and Devers also observed. June noted, "No, they will achieve nothing this way." Clark and Grunther refused to observe what was happening and remained in their headquarters. That evening and the following day, the artillery continued to bombard the ruins of the monastery, along with another raid of 59 bombers. There was not a single German soldier in the abbey. The timing of the airstrike, however, was not coordinated with the ground command. In the Air Force, the strike was developed as a separate operation, taking into account weather conditions, and the timing of the operation was adjusted to meet the demands of other fronts requesting air support. The strike began 3 days before the New Zealand Corps was ready to organize its main attack. Many units had just taken up positions previously occupied by the 2nd American Corps on February 13. Besides the difficulties awaiting the troops in the mountains, fresh troops in the valley were also delayed due to supply issues, caused by difficult weather conditions and flooding in the valley by the Germans.